I'm your ride. We're leaving. The men were staring at us, father and son, locked in a silent battle. It was a tense moment. If the wrong thing had been said, it could have turned very ugly. With all eyes on the room glued to us, my dad made a comment about wanting to beat traffic. It allowed him to save face so we could leave the party, but I could tell that he was livid. We walked out and my dad managed to hold his tongue until we got to the car. He turned to me, eyes blazing, and said, "What's wrong with you, son? You just embarrassed me in front of my family. This is not how you handle yourself." The guy was just kidding. He didn't mean anything by it. "I don't care whether it's a joke or if he's being serious," I said. "No one talks to you that way." For 30 minutes, I couldn't stop repeating to my dad, "They may have to kill me, but the world is going to know your last name." I couldn't even tell you who they referred to, but I was going ballistic. For 30 minutes, I couldn't stop repeating, "They may have to kill me, but the world is going to know your last name." In response, my dad just kept shaking his head saying, "What is wrong with you, son?" I can't tell you what my dad was thinking at the time, but I could sense that he didn't really believe me. I had yet to prove that I could stick with my goal, so I'm sure he thought that I lacked the discipline to back up my words. To him, it must have sounded more like a tantrum than a declaration. That didn't stop me from carrying on. No one talks to my dad like this. Nobody does. And you shouldn't let anybody talk to you like this, no matter how hard a life we've had. We arrived at our rundown complex in Granada Hills and went to the apartment we shared. I had one final thing to say to my dad. "I'm going to show the world how special a father you have been." Then I called my sister and brother-in-law and told them to come over the next day for a meeting. When they arrived, we all sat down and I said, "I'm not going to sleep until the world knows our last name, Bet David. It's game over." The party had happened more than 6 years before I started my financial services firm and more than a decade before I started making content for Valuetainment, my media company. So what does my dad being insulted have to do with business planning? Everything. As you will soon understand, the most critical element for success in business planning is choosing your enemies wisely. Yes, you heard that right, enemies. In business, you will face challenges, haters, betrayals, bankruptcies, and ideologies that stand in the way of your success. But what if I told you that these so-called enemies could become your greatest source of fuel? What if you could turn shame, guilt, anger, disappointment, and heartbreak into the fire that propels you towards your wildest dreams? You're going to see how to leverage your enemies to light a fuse that ignites your power to transform. We'll dive deep into the mindset of successful entrepreneurs who have turned their greatest challenges into their biggest strengths. You'll learn how to harness the energy of emotions and use them as a catalyst for success. But this is not just a book about mindset. I'll also provide you with practical tools and strategies to help you navigate the challenges of business. You will see how to use the fuel from your enemies to create a business plan that is emotional, logical, and actionable. The night of the party, I had no clue what a gift this condescending relative had given to me. I didn't realize that to find the key to my success, exactly what I needed was someone to insult my last name and my father. I learned that I do better fighting for others than for myself. All I needed was for someone to piss me off by offending my dad. The man who insulted my dad created a fire that would move me in ways that I didn't know I could be moved. It's no coincidence that this party was right after my dad had another heart attack and stayed at UCLA Medical Center for a month. It intensified my fear of him dying without meeting his future grandkids. I wanted my kids to know him because I had never met his dad, my grandfather. When many bad things happen at once and we can no longer handle the stress, we have either a breakdown or a breakthrough. By the grace of God, I found a way to channel all this adversity into change in my life. With the goal of showing the world what the Bet David name is all about, I immediately dropped all bad habits. I was done with clubs. With my free time, all I did was read books on investments, sales, and anything that had to do with business. My sister and my friend Robbie recommended How to Win Friends and Influence People and How to Master the Art of Selling. I took notes and read them over and over. My business did not take off the next day, much less the next year. The last thing I want you to think is that my path was easy. Obstacles will appear for you as they did for me.